Lilly and Jack Sullivan didn't just go missing, they vanished. That's what it felt like when the first 911 call came through. A mother's voice, shaking, breathless. You can hear her trying to say the words, but they don't come out right. She's sobbing.
What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep, and they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them, and they happen to just get out that sliding door, and we can't hear it when it opens, and they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time, and the next thing we knew, it was quiet, and we get up, and I tell him, my partner, Daniel, I tell him, do you hear the kids? And he says, no, and we get up instantly, we're looking outside, we're looking everywhere, yelling for them, and I instantly just call 911.
The dispatcher is asking, ma'am, when did you last see your children? But the truth is, there was no goodbye, no scream, no sign of a struggle. Just silence and an open door. Outside, on the front porch of their modest home in Nova Scotia, were two small pairs of shoes. Jack's sneakers, double-knotted. Lilly's pink sandals, neatly lined up. Not thrown off in a rush, placed. Deliberate. Almost like the children thought they'd be coming right back. But they never did. The Sullivan family lived at the edge of the woods, a quiet rural road where nothing ever happened. The kind of place where kids rode bikes until sundown and you didn't worry about locking your door at night. Until now. What started as a routine missing persons alert soon escalated into something else entirely, a mystery that would grip the entire country and leave even seasoned investigators stunned. The timeline was tight. Almost too tight. At 3:12 p.m., the Sullivan mother, Caroline, snapped a photo of the kids playing in the front yard. Lilly, age 7, had a stick in one hand and her brother Jack, age 4, was holding a juice box. By 3:40 p.m., the kids were gone. No car was heard, no stranger spotted, and none of the neighbors saw anything unusual. It was as if the earth had swallowed them whole. The search began immediately. Within hours, local police set up a grid around the surrounding woods.
Are you able to authorize and start getting some search teams going to airlock location?
Volunteers poured in. K-9 units scoured the area. Drones were deployed. Flashlights swept through the trees late into the night, but the only sound that came back was the wind. No footprints. No broken branches. No pieces of clothing. Nothing. For a brief moment, investigators wondered if the kids had simply wandered off, maybe into the forest trail near their house. But that hope didn't last long. Both Lilly and Jack were cautious children. And besides, they'd left their shoes behind. Who walks into the woods barefoot on a cold April afternoon? That's when the theories started pouring in. Some pointed to a possible abduction.
When somebody goes missing and we become engaged as any police officer, not just major crime, we will look at all the details and make considerations on the information we have, right? When it comes to a missing person, we have to automatically consider are there people that have different charter implications and things like that, so we will automatically start to consider what evidence is pointing us towards a suspicious in nature. Again, I can't comment more than that, but every missing person case, we would approach it from the same process, a methodical collection and review of information with decisions based on that.
But if someone had taken them, how did they do it without leaving a single trace? No tire marks. No struggle. No witnesses. Others started whispering about something even more chilling. Was it someone the kids knew? Someone they trusted? Because that's the most disturbing kind of predator, the one who doesn't need to break in because the door is already open.
I know the truth. I didn't kill Lilly and Jack.
It's been 6 weeks now since you've seen Lilly and Jack. I just want to ask, how are you holding up?
It's been a long 6 weeks. I know that everybody basically in the world at this point is always wanting to know what happened. It's been from sadness to anger at this point. And I know the RCMP and major crimes are working around the clock trying to piece everything together, and I'm grateful for that. But it always leaves the question, 6 weeks has gone by, and we know at this point they're not in the woods, and where are they?
Did you feel in the beginning that they suspected you?
Of course. The stepfather was always a prime suspect right off the beginning.
You felt that from the beginning?
Yeah.
But you don't feel that now?
No, I don't feel that at all. I asked for the lie detector exam, the polygraph exam. I gave them my phone. I told them I do drug tests because there's a lot of rumors online about a drug party. I know the person that said those rumors, and it was just to take the heat off themselves.
5 days later, the case took a turn. A nearby fisherman reported hearing what sounded like a child's voice echoing through the woods before sunset. He was miles from the Sullivan home, but he was certain he heard a name being called out. Lilly. Over and over again. Not in fear, in confusion. Like someone was lost. Police rushed to the area. The dogs were brought in again. But the trail ended just as quickly as it had begun. The voice was gone. For weeks, the Sullivan home remained frozen in time. Toys in the yard. Drawings still taped to the fridge. Caroline stopped doing interviews. The father, Tom Sullivan, grew increasingly withdrawn. Online theories exploded. Some claimed it was a ritual abduction. Others blamed child trafficking. A few, disturbingly, turned their suspicion toward the parents themselves.
Did you feel in the beginning that they suspected you?
Of course. The stepfather was always a prime suspect right off the beginning.
You felt that from the beginning?
Yeah.
But you don't feel that now?
No, I don't feel that at all. I asked for the lie detector exam, the polygraph exam. I gave them my phone. I told them I do drug tests because there's a lot of rumors online about a drug party.
People wanted answers. And when none came, they started making their own. But then something happened that no one expected. Exactly 21 days after the disappearance, a child's shirt was discovered. Caught on a low-hanging branch near the riverbed, miles from the original search grid. It was pink, torn, and unmistakably Lilly's. DNA confirmed it, but the relief was short-lived, because next to the shirt, they found nothing else. No footprints, no blood, no signs of life or death. Just one eerie, hanging silence. The case hit national headlines again. News anchors called it the Nova Scotia vanishing. Psychics offered their visions. Police expanded their search to abandoned cabins, storm drains, even reopened decades-old missing children files hoping to find a pattern. But the trail was cold. And then the letters arrived. 2 envelopes. No return address. No fingerprints. One mailed to the Sullivan home. The other to the local police department. Inside, a child's drawing. Crayons on folded paper. One showed a house in the woods with 2 stick figures, one bigger, one smaller, holding hands. The sun was shining. A crooked smile was drawn on both faces. The other showed a black door, with red scribbles all around it, and the words, "Don't come looking." Experts analyzed the handwriting, the paper, the ink, the DNA traces, but nothing conclusive came back. Was it a hoax? A taunt? A clue? Caroline said she recognized the drawing style. She was almost certain Lilly drew it. But how? How could a child who vanished without a trace be sending messages weeks later? And that's where the story rests, at least for now. Because as of today, there's still no sign of Lilly or Jack Sullivan. No confirmed sightings. No confessions. No bodies. Just whispers in the forest. A shirt on a branch. And 2 empty pairs of shoes, still sitting by the door like they're waiting to be worn again. May 2nd, 2025. Gairloch Road, Nova Scotia. A remote property tucked between deep woods and deafening silence. It was a Friday morning, the kind that passes without much thought in most homes. But in the Sullivan house, something irreversible was already unfolding. At exactly 10 a.m., 6-year-old Lilly and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan vanished. One moment, they were inside, safe, alive, warm in their pajamas. The next, they were nowhere. That morning, everything seemed normal, at least at first. The children had been watching cartoons and playing in the living room.
What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep, and they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them. And they happen to just get out that sliding door, and we can't hear it when it opens. and they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time. And the next thing we knew, it was quiet, and we get up and I tell him, my partner, Daniel, I tell him, do you hear the kids? And he says, no. And we get up instantly. We're looking outside. We're looking everywhere, yelling for them. And I instantly just call 911. I just had the instinct I needed to call. They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone. They're just extremely sweet kids. I appreciate the huge search effort going on right now, but we've been pushing for an Amber Alert, which hasn't been issued. Not just that they could possibly be abducted, which it is a possibility that they could have been, but just an alert to let everyone know that they are missing. We had people text me saying that they weren't aware someone else let them know that they were missing, and it would just be nice if everyone could be alerted. We thought maybe that we found tracks, but it's still uncertain. It's been raining and they're probably soaking wet, but with the sun today, I'm hopeful that they are feeling warm. We're all filled with pain and sorrow because we just want them found. We want them home. Everyone loves them. They are definitely verbal, and they do have possible autism, but it's not extreme autism. It's just they have issues with school, and they don't catch up with the other kids. I just want to remain hopeful. But there's always, in a mother's mind, you're always thinking the worst. Last night was one of the worst nights because I didn't have them in their beds. And I don't want to go through that another night without them.
Their mother, Caroline, told investigators that she stepped outside briefly to feed the chickens. It was something she did every morning, just a few minutes outside the house. The coop was only yards away. She didn't hear anything strange. No raised voices. No slamming doors. Just the usual rustle of the trees and the cluck of the birds. But when she returned, the door was open. Not wide open. Just ajar. Enough to catch her eye. Enough to make her pause. She called out for the kids. Once, twice. No answer. At first, she thought they were hiding. Maybe playing a game. But there was no laughter. No footsteps. Just silence. A silence so complete it felt unnatural. The kind of silence that presses in around your ears and makes your heart beat louder. She searched every room, checked under beds, opened closets. Nothing. There were no screams. No broken furniture. No overturned chairs. No muddy footprints trailing in or out. No sign of panic. No sound of a car pulling in. Just the empty space where two children had been only moments earlier. The living room looked undisturbed. A blanket folded on the couch. A toy truck on the floor. The TV still playing. Their pajamas hadn't even been changed. It was like they had stepped outside and disappeared into thin air. From the beginning, the case defied logic. The timeline was too tight. The house too quiet. The scene too clean. And as Caroline stood there, calling out their names into the woods, there was only one thing she knew for certain. Something had happened in those few short minutes that would unravel their entire world. Something that stole two children in the time it takes to gather eggs. And in that silence, the question echoed louder than ever. How do two small children vanish, in broad daylight, without a trace? Some believe the children are still alive. Hidden. Or raised by someone far from the world they once knew. Others think the truth is darker, that they were taken by someone who knew exactly how to make people disappear. But there's one thing nobody disagrees on. Kids don't just vanish. Not like this. Not without someone noticing. So if someone did see something, they haven't spoken yet. And if someone knows what happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan, they're still out there. Within hours of Lilly and Jack's disappearance, search crews were combing the dense woods that surrounded their rural Nova Scotia home. Volunteers from neighboring towns showed up with flashlights, dogs, and drone equipment, shouting the children's names through the pines. Police coordinated the efforts, drawing up search grids and scouring the trails with urgency. But by the third day, something shifted. The focus was no longer just on the woods or the river or the hope that the kids had simply wandered off. It was on the house itself, on the people inside it, on what wasn't being said. Caroline Sullivan, the children's mother, had been emotionally devastated in the early hours, her 911 call raw with panic, her face pale and tear-streaked on local news, begging for help. She handed out missing person flyers at the grocery store. She spoke directly to the camera, saying, "Lilly, Jack, we're looking for you, baby. Please come home." And then she was gone. By day 4, Caroline had left town completely. The police said she was visiting relatives out of province, but they wouldn't say where. She stopped appearing on the news. She stopped talking to the public. The sudden silence confused many and angered others. On social media, speculation spread like wildfire. Why would a mother walk away during what investigators call the golden window for finding missing children? Some defended her. Grief manifests in unpredictable ways, they said. But others weren't so sure. It wasn't just grief. It was the silence, the distance, the timing. And then there was Tom Sullivan, the children's stepfather. From the very beginning, he stayed in the background. No press conferences, no interviews, no appearances at community vigils. Neighbors said he seemed numb and cold. One even claimed Tom avoided eye contact when asked how he was holding up.
It's been 6 weeks now since you've seen Lilly and Jack. I just want to ask, how are you holding up?
It's been a long 6 weeks. I know that everybody basically in the world at this point is always wanting to know what happened. It's been from sadness to anger at this point. And I know the RCMP and major crimes are working around the clock trying to piece everything together, and I'm grateful for that. But it always leaves the question, 6 weeks has gone by, and we know at this point they're not in the woods, and where are they?
But the most jarring detail? He never once joined a search party. While dozens of volunteers and officers combed the woods and lakes in freezing temperatures, Tom stayed home. When asked why, he allegedly told one reporter, "I don't want to get in the way." That comment lit a fuse. Was it grief or guilt? And through it all, one detail kept resurfacing. One that never stopped nagging at the investigators, the community, and even internet sleuths across the country. The sliding glass door. The one that led from the kitchen to the backyard. The last place Lilly and Jack were seen. It was supposed to be locked. Caroline had even told friends that she was vigilant about keeping that door shut, especially with Jack being so young.
What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep, and they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them.
But when the first officers arrived, the door was wide open. Not broken, not forced, just open. The kind of open that suggests someone inside the house unlocked it. Or someone outside knew how to get in, quietly. There were no muddy footprints, no handprints, no drag marks, just silence. And the 2 tiny pairs of shoes still sitting neatly beside the porch. Not tossed in a hurry, not kicked off in fear. Please, almost like the kids had stepped out for a moment, expecting to come back. That sliding glass door quickly became more than a detail. It became a symbol, a question that no one could answer. Had the children slipped out on their own? Had someone lured them out, someone they trusted? Or worse, had someone inside opened that door for them to leave? Even now, that door haunts the investigation. It's been called the case's silent witness. It saw what happened that day. It framed the last moment the kids were known to be alive. And yet it won't speak. But maybe it already has, in its stillness, in its deliberate openness. A door that no one admits to unlocking and no one remembers seeing open, but somehow is. And to this day, people wonder, did that sliding door open into the forest? Or into the truth that nobody wants to face? Over 200 volunteers answered the call. Farmers left their fields. Retirees pulled on boots they hadn't worn in years. Teens skipped school to walk shoulder to shoulder through the brush. The town came alive with urgency, united by a single goal: bring Lilly and Jack home. People brought their own flashlights, radios, and old camping gear. Others brought casseroles and coffee for the searchers. They combed the woods from dawn to well past midnight, day after day. Night vision drones were deployed by police and private tech companies, their infrared cameras cutting through the forest canopy in long sweeping arcs. You can see it in the footage, branches illuminated in ghostly blue, animal heat signatures flickering in the dark. But nothing that resembled a child. Not even a hint. Cadaver dogs were brought in from 3 provinces. Trained to detect even the faintest trace of human remains, they were supposed to be the most reliable part of any large-scale search. But even the dogs were confused. Multiple handlers reported the same chilling detail. The scent trail stopped. Cold. Every dog tracked the children sent from inside the home to the edge of the sliding glass door, and then nothing. Not faded, not dispersed, gone. As if whatever happened next didn't involve walking, running, or being dragged. As if the children had crossed that threshold and vanished from the earth itself. Some volunteers described the forest as strangely still. No birdsong, no wind. One woman, a retired nurse, recalled how her dog refused to go past a certain ridge near the Sullivan property, ears down, tail low, whining. "I've searched for lost kids before," she said. But this felt different. Like the woods weren't hiding something. Like they'd already given it up and we just couldn't see it. There were no items found. No pajamas snagged on branches. No toys. No scraps of fabric. Nothing you'd expect from 2 barefoot children moving through underbrush and stone. One veteran tracker with 15 years of SAR experience told a local reporter, "If they'd walked even 10 feet into those woods, we'd have something. A broken branch. A heel print. But we don't. We've got a door and a void." Every logical explanation, wandered off, got lost, wild animal encounter, started to feel thinner by the hour. Because nothing left behind even the faintest sign. And so the question grew louder, whispered on every trail, behind every checkpoint. How do 2 children walk out a door and leave no trace they were ever there? The biological father lived out of province, far enough that authorities investigated him quickly but cleared him just as fast. He hadn't seen the kids in months. No recent communication. No travel. No connection to the scene. From a legal standpoint, he was out of the picture. But all eyes soon turned to someone who was very much in it. Daniel Martell, the children's stepfather. According to initial statements, Daniel was reportedly the last adult to see Lilly and Jack alive that morning. He claimed he had been inside the house, just a room away, when the children disappeared. When asked if he heard anything, footsteps, a door, cries, he said something that many would find chilling: "The door doesn't make sound. I didn't hear them leave." That comment struck investigators. It wasn't just what he said. It was how calm, how flat, how matter-of-fact it sounded. Like the absence of noise was explanation enough for the absence of 2 children. The phrasing would echo through interviews, forums, and news segments for weeks. "The door doesn't make sound. I didn't hear them leave." It was subtle, but also strange. It felt too convenient, too controlled. And when reporters later tested the sliding glass door in question, some noted it did make a sound, faint but audible, enough to be heard from the next room. So why say otherwise? And then another twist. Just days after the children vanished, Caroline, Lilly and Jack's mother, left the family trailer entirely. She didn't announce it to the public or speak to reporters. She just packed a few bags and disappeared from the area. She was later said to be staying with her sister across the province. But that wasn't the only move she made. She also blocked Daniel on social media. Every platform. Gone. No public comment. No explanation. Just silence and distance. To some, it was a sign of stress, a mother cracking under pressure. But to others, especially online sleuths, it looked like something more deliberate. A severing. As if something had happened between them in those crucial days. As if Caroline no longer trusted the man she once called her partner. And in the absence of answers, people did what they always do. They started to fill in the blanks themselves. Was it grief? Or guilt? Was she protecting herself? or hiding something. The truth, if anyone knew it, had already slipped through that silent door. Just like the children. Theory 2, abduction. The darkest theory, and the one that kept parents up at night. What if Lilly and Jack Sullivan didn't wander off? What if they were taken? At first glance, it seemed unlikely. There were no signs of forced entry. No broken locks. No shattered glass. Nothing that pointed to a violent intruder. The sliding door was found open, yes, but not damaged. No scuff marks. No pry tools. Just open. As if it had been invited open. And that's where this theory turns from a simple stranger danger scenario into something far more chilling. Because the road to the Sullivan home was isolated, really isolated. Gairloch Road was barely paved, surrounded by dense woods on both sides. The nearest passable road was nearly a kilometer from the house. No one could have parked a car near the property without leaving tracks. No one could have approached without being seen. Unless the kids knew the person. That's what started to take root online, and even behind closed doors in the RCMP's internal meetings. If it was an abduction, then it wasn't random. A stranger couldn't have reached the house without making noise, without drawing attention, and most importantly, without getting caught on something, footprints, tire tracks, surveillance. But there were none. So if someone did manage to take Lilly and Jack from the house without force, without sound, without being seen, there's only one scenario that makes sense. They were let in, or the kids willingly walked out to them. A family friend? A relative? Someone who had visited the house before? Someone who'd been watching long enough to know the mother's routine, the time she stepped out to feed the chickens. The few short minutes when the children would be alone. Vulnerable. Unsupervised. It's a terrifying possibility, because it means trust was broken. Not by accident, but by design. And it also means that someone knew exactly when and how to strike. The thought of a planned abduction in such a remote setting shook the community to its core. Parents began installing cameras, locking doors during the day. Some even pulled their kids out of school. Because if this was an abduction, and someone had taken the children with surgical precision, no noise, no damage, no trail, then that person didn't just get lucky. They were watching. They were waiting. And they knew exactly what they were doing. Theory 3. This is where things get dark. When the wandering theory collapsed under evidence, and the abduction theory raised more questions than answers, people started turning their attention inward. To the only place left. The family. It began with subtle signs. Caroline, the mother, deactivated her Facebook just 4 days after the disappearance. Her once active profile, where she had posted photos of the kids weekly, was suddenly gone. No explanation. No message. Just silence. Some said it was a way to escape the avalanche of public attention. Others believed it was an attempt to wipe the slate clean. But that silence only fed the fire. Then came the stepfather, Daniel Martell. Despite being the last known person to see Lilly and Jack alive, he never joined the search efforts. Not once. While neighbors were combing the forest in knee-deep brush, Daniel stayed home. He didn't appear at vigils. Didn't give interviews. Didn't cry on camera. Some said he was withdrawn and grieving in private. Others called it something else. Cold. Controlled. Calculated. Online, the theories turned dark. Very dark. Whispers of neglect. Of abuse. Of something happening in that trailer that no one wanted to talk about. People began digging through old photos, reading between the lines of social media posts, analyzing the kids' expressions, the house's condition. One Reddit thread, later removed, compiled every public record tied to the couple. Fights with neighbors. A welfare check from 2 years prior. A noise complaint. None of it confirmed. But in the court of public opinion, the pieces were beginning to form a picture. A darker picture. One where something terrible happened inside that home. Not outside. Not in the woods. But behind the sliding glass door. And maybe it wasn't planned. Maybe it wasn't even intentional. But maybe it was covered up. Some speculated about an accident, an injury, a moment of panic. Others whispered about abuse that had been escalating. The idea that perhaps one of the adults lost control. That something happened to one of the kids. And then came the cover-up. The silence. The distance. Suddenly, the mother's disappearance from town didn't feel like retreat. It felt like flight. And Daniel's refusal to speak? That wasn't grief. That was fear. Was this why the scent ended at the door? Was this why the dogs found nothing in the woods? Because the children never went into the woods at all? Was the forest just a distraction? An echo of innocence to mask something far more disturbing? In the absence of facts, speculation took over. But one thing was certain: the longer the case went unsolved, the darker the theories became. And this theory, the one no one wanted to say out loud, was beginning to feel less like a stretch and more like a possibility. Because sometimes the truth isn't hiding in the trees. Sometimes it's right there inside the house. By the second week, something shifted. The tone, the energy, the way officers moved around the property. At first, they'd been cautious, methodical, treating the Sullivan home like the starting point of a tragic disappearance. But now, it looked different. The gloves went on. Evidence bags came out. Officers weren't just knocking politely, they were collecting. The questions got sharper, more pointed. The interviews turned into interrogations. Police took DNA swabs from every surface inside the trailer. They removed several items from the home: clothing, toys, pieces of bedding. They wouldn't say why. Then came the polygraphs. Multiple people close to the children, including both Caroline and Daniel, were asked to take lie detector tests. The results? Never released. Not to the press. Not even to family. When asked about them in a press conference, the lead investigator offered only one response: "We are pursuing multiple possibilities." At the same time, neighbors began coming forward with stories they hadn't shared in the early days. One couple, who lived across the ridge, told reporters they'd heard shouting from the Sullivan trailer weeks before the disappearance. Not a single argument, but multiple. But late at night, one neighbor claimed she thought she heard a child crying, but you never want to assume the worst. Back then, she hadn't reported it. Now, she couldn't forget it. Police also seized electronic devices. Cell phones, tablets, a home laptop, any camera that might have been running. They combed through GPS data, call logs, deleted texts. Still, they remained tight-lipped about what, if anything, they'd found. The investigation was no longer just a missing persons case. It had become a forensic excavation. And then, just when everything seemed to be going quiet again, something surfaced. A child's blanket. It was found approximately 300 meters from the Sullivan home, tangled beneath a thicket near the edge of a dry creek bed. What made this discovery so disturbing wasn't just its location, it was the timing. That area had been searched. Thoroughly. Multiple times in the first week. By dogs. By drones. By trained personnel. Nothing had been there before. Now suddenly, weeks later, it appeared. Half buried. Covered in pollen and forest debris, but no blood. No hair. No DNA. No identifying marks. Just a soft, dirt-stained bundle of fabric. A child's blanket that looked like it had been placed. Not dropped. Not dragged. Placed. The find sent a ripple through the investigation. Was this the break they needed? A missed clue? Or worse, a planted distraction? Something to steer the investigation away from wherever it was heading? Or was it the only real clue Lilly and Jack ever left behind? Even now, no one can say for sure. But one thing is clear. By week 2, the story had changed. The house was no longer a backdrop. It was now a crime scene. And everyone inside it was under a different kind of spotlight. Lily's pink blanket wasn't just a clue, it was a turning point. When search crews first found it, they didn't make a public announcement. There was no press conference. No photo. Not at first. It was too suspicious. Too staged. Found nearly 3 weeks into the investigation, it appeared on a damp patch of moss, 300 meters from the trailer. A place that had been searched extensively in the early days, on foot, by air, with thermal drones, even with dogs. Nothing had been there before. Not a scrap of fabric. Not a footprint. But now, suddenly, a child's blanket? It wasn't just suspicious. It was chilling. At first glance, the blanket seemed eerily untouched. No blood. No tears. No signs of violence. It had forest debris stuck to it, pollen, twigs, a few ants, but no DNA. No hair from the children. No fingerprints. And that's what struck the forensic team. A child's blanket should have something. Sweat, saliva, fibers. But this? It was empty, as if it had been washed or planted. This wasn't something a child would have dropped running through the woods in panic. It didn't look lost. It looked placed. Investigators were now asking an entirely different kind of question. Who put this here? And more importantly, when? Because if the blanket wasn't there during the initial search, and it was now, then someone had returned to the area. Recently. Someone who knew the investigation was slowing. Someone who wanted to breathe new life into a fading search, but on their terms. The theory that the kids had simply wandered off was fading fast. And if the abduction theory was still in play, the blanket's appearance only made it more complicated. What kind of kidnapper comes back weeks later to drop a child's belonging where police already searched? Unless the person wasn't a stranger at all. In that moment, for detectives, the case transformed. It was no longer just about where Lilly and Jack went. It was now about who was lying. And the blanket, that soft, pale pink reminder of innocence, was now a loud symbol of deceit. Behind the scenes, the energy shifted. Search coordinators were pulled aside. A quiet meeting was held with the district attorney. Surveillance footage from surrounding homes, once considered irrelevant, was reviewed frame by frame. Phone pings, travel logs. They weren't looking for strangers anymore. They were looking for patterns, mistakes, guilt. Meanwhile, the public remained in the dark. Reporters were still calling it a missing persons case. But to insiders, that language no longer applied. They weren't looking for lost children in the woods. They were investigating a crime. The question now wasn't just what happened to Lilly and Jack. It was who knew more than they were saying, and how far they were willing to go to hide it. Then came the storm, not of weather, but of speculation. Within hours of the blanket discovery going public, the internet lit up like wildfire. Reddit exploded with timelines. YouTube channels dropped back-to-back theory videos, complete with ominous music, maps, and voiceovers. TikTok sleuths scrolled through the mother's social media, breaking down her expressions, her captions, even the timestamps of old photos. What started as collective concern twisted into collective obsession. Some users tried to help. Some really did bring attention to gaps in the timeline, inconsistencies in statements, and old local rumors that had never made the news. A few even organized new search efforts on their own, bringing drones and trail cams to nearby forests. But others? Others fueled chaos. Anonymous accounts began doxing the family, sharing phone numbers, property records, even childhood photos of Lilly's mother. One viral post accused the stepfather, Daniel Martell, of having a troubled past, linking him to unrelated police reports that were later proven false. A volunteer searcher was wrongly identified as a suspect and received death threats for 2 weeks straight. Another was chased off his own property by people claiming he knew something. Even the RCMP wasn't spared. People online accused law enforcement of covering up the truth, protecting the family, protecting their own, dragging their feet on warrants. Hashtags like #Justice for Lilly and Jack and #Where are the Sullivans began trending. Some theorists claimed a sex trafficking ring was involved. Others believed the children had never existed at all and it was all an elaborate hoax for attention or money. Truth and rumor became indistinguishable. And while real investigators worked behind the scenes, the noise outside grew deafening. Leads poured in, most of them false. People claimed to see the children in malls, gas stations, hotel parking lots. Each tip pulled resources away from the real work. Each one slowed the process down. The Sullivan family was no longer just grieving and under suspicion. They were being hunted by an online mob. Every word they spoke, or didn't speak, was dissected. Why didn't the mother cry more on camera? Why didn't Daniel speak to the press? Why did Lilly's grandmother delete a Facebook post? The internet had no room for nuance, no tolerance for silence. And yet, somewhere in that chaos, there were still real clues. Real questions that hadn't been answered. Real things that didn't make sense. Because while most of the online frenzy was noise, it also reflected something undeniable. Nobody believed this case was simple anymore. And maybe, just maybe, that pressure would finally force the truth out of hiding. In July 2025, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police finally said what everyone had been whispering for weeks. This wasn't just a missing persons case. It was something darker, something deliberate, something potentially criminal. With cold finality, the RCMP held a somber press conference in Halifax. Behind the podium, they didn't give families hope, they gave them honesty. "We are now investigating this as a potential abduction," the lead investigator said, his voice steady but heavy. "And we are not ruling out the possibility of foul play." It was a shift that sent chills across the country. The language changed. The tone hardened. This wasn't a search anymore. It was a manhunt. That same day, a $150,000 reward was announced for any information leading to Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Tip lines reopened. Billboards went up. Flyers were updated with the words, "Abducted, not missing." Helicopters buzzed overhead again. Cadaver dogs were redeployed. But despite it all, despite the pressure, the headlines, the internet frenzy, nothing changed. There were no suspects, no arrests, no confessions, no sightings confirmed by police. Not in Nova Scotia. Not in any province. Not even overseas, despite wild rumors that they'd been trafficked or smuggled. And perhaps most devastating of all, there was no evidence of life. No school records. No social media pings. No medical data. But no evidence of death either. No remains. No forensic confirmation. No grave. It was like the children had been swallowed by the earth. And that uncertainty? It was a slow, relentless ache. The kind that drives families to keep lights on at night, to sleep by the door, to wait for a knock that never comes. As of today, Lilly and Jack Sullivan's case remains open. But if you strip away the headlines, the theories, the noise, you're left with the cruelest truth of all. Two small children walked out of their living room on a quiet spring morning and never came back. Some say they wandered, maybe drawn by the nearby creek, the rustle of trees, the innocent thrill of a quiet spring morning. Maybe Lilly, just 6, took her little brother Jack by the hand and led him past the porch, down the slope behind the trailer, chasing a butterfly, a sound, a mystery. But seasoned trackers, men and women who've spent their lives finding people in forests far more treacherous than Gerla, swore that if those kids had gone into the woods, they would have been found. No footprints. No torn clothing. No signs of panic or injury. The cadaver dogs lost the scent at the door. There was no trail to follow. Others believe it was an abduction. Silent, precise, maybe someone watching the family for days, waiting for that one vulnerable window. But how? The nearest road was almost a kilometer away. A vehicle couldn't approach without being heard or seen, unless, of course, it didn't need to hide. Unless whoever came was already known to the children. Someone they trusted. Someone they would follow, even in pajamas, without question. Still, the third theory is the darkest. The one few say aloud, but many whisper in comment threads and private messages. That the truth never left the property. That whatever happened to Lilly and Jack didn't start when the mother fed the chickens or when the sliding door opened, but long before. That the answers lie in the silences, the inconsistencies, the things no one will talk about. Why did the mother, Angela, leave the family trailer just days after the kids vanished? Why block the stepfather on social media if you're both grieving the same loss? Why did Daniel Martell, the last known adult to see them, never help with the search, never go on camera, never plead for their return? And then there's the blanket. Lilly's pink blanket, discovered 300 meters into the forest, weeks after the area had already been swept by search teams and dogs. It was clean. No blood. No hair. No saliva. No DNA. Just pollen. Debris. As if it had been gently placed there. A distraction? A breadcrumb? Or the only piece of the truth anyone would ever find? Online, the case ignited a firestorm. Reddit forums posted minute-by-minute timelines, cross-referenced photos, created satellite overlays of the terrain. TikTok users analyzed body language in old Facebook videos. YouTube investigators built theories that spread like wildfire. Some of it helped raise awareness, but much of it spiraled into chaos, doxing the family, harassing volunteers, even accusing law enforcement of cover-ups. And through it all, one thing stayed constant: silence. In July 2025, the RCMP finally admitted what everyone already feared. This wasn't just a missing persons case anymore. It was a potential abduction. Or worse, a reward of 150,000 Canadian dollars was posted. But it didn't change anything. No suspects, no arrests, no sightings, no ransom notes, no remains, just absence. 2 small children, one in a Minnie Mouse pajama top, the other clutching a toy truck, vanished without a sound. No screams, no broken glass, no sign of life or death. And so the theories live on. Some say they wandered, others say they were taken, and some still believe the truth lives inside that trailer. 2 children, no voices, no tracks, no return. And until someone finally speaks, until guilt breaks or evidence surfaces, the woods will keep their secret.